This is Introductory Buddhist Meditation and Philosophy. We have two practitioners with us this evening. Tal, who is relatively new, and Michael, who is much more experienced with practice. And this way we have a nice kind of balance, I think, of questions and experience in meditation. So without further ado, I'm Lama Dawa Zangpo, a Lama trained in the Kagyu lineage. And we're going to just jump right in. So Tal, I believe you had a question to start us off.
So I've been sick for the last week and wanted to know if there is any other, do you alter your meditation practice while you're sick in any capacity, or is there anything different that you might do?
Well, keep some Kleenex handy. No, I guess the answer is yes, and the answer is no. Life is always throwing us changes and curveballs. That's the nature of our existence. So we're always juggling, and we're always playing catch up, and we're always modifying to meet our circumstances, of course. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that there's a consistency and a universality of non-change. So when I say the sides of the coin, we in Buddhism, of course, we always talk about everything's in a state of change and flux, that nothing holds still. And so everything is in constant change, of course. On the other hand, there is something we're striving towards, which is a wisdom that is unchanging wisdom. That's, you could say, the goal, what we're after. So when we practice and something comes up in our life, sickness or whatever, it's a great opportunity to deal with these two truths of change and of non-change, you could say. And of course, all practice is to bring these two together and not, we say, veer into either extreme. And so when we practice and we're sick, we have a lot of juicy material to work with. When we practice and we're not sick, we have a lot of juicy material to work with, which is the juiciness of our own minds, the juiciness of our thoughts that we're constantly spinning out. Sickness just means the content of the thoughts changes, not the substance of the thoughts. On a practical level, sickness is a very intimate situation, of course, and it presents unique challenges, obviously. So let's just say, as beginners, which we're all beginners, when we're sick, we're most likely not going to have the endurance that we would have if we're not sick. So we cut our practice shorter. We cut ourselves some slack. The middle path means we're not rigid in our practice. And that's what I meant when I was saying before that we meet different circumstances as opportunities to continue to develop our wisdom in our practice. If you're a baseball player, you don't just get fastballs all the time. You get change-ups and curveballs. It's the same thing. We need to learn how to hit whatever pitch is coming at us, metaphorically, of course. So we just practice and we learn different things from different circumstances. So sickness certainly affords us an opportunity to learn something. It may teach us a little bit about impatience, about our own relationship with our own personal suffering. And of course, suffering comes in a rainbow of forms. Suffering comes physically, it's emotional. There's emotional suffering. There's the suffering of loss of loved ones. I mean, it comes in all shapes and sizes. So physical sickness, of course, is just one of a whole variety of different kinds of sufferings. So I would just say, this is a path where we are not trying to be austere. We're not trying to be, heroes. So we just work with what's given to us, and we can learn to be kind to ourselves, which itself is a great lesson. We can take a break if we need to take a break. We're not trying to just be stoic warriors. That's not probably going to serve us that well. So get yourself healthy or take care of yourself and so on. Bring whatever practice you can to the sickness. Just like we'd say, bring the sickness to your practice, but bring your practice to your sickness. Also, I think I can't resist the temptation to just say a brief classic Buddhist metaphor, which is that our conditioned experience as embodied beings in a dualistic sense of here I am, there's a self, and then there's an external world around me, that in itself is a sickness. Having pride is a sickness. Having jealousy is certainly a sickness. Having impatience and anger is a sickness. Having ignorance is a sickness. So in the metaphor that's often traditionally used, the Buddha is the great physician that cures the illness of samsara, and the Dharma is the medicine. So the Buddha does not help us or save us, except insofar as a Buddha offers teachings, the Dharma, but we as the, let's say, patient, need to take the medicine. We have to apply the Dharma, is what that means. That means we practice. So that's probably all I need to say about that at this point. Okay, do you have a follow-up question, Tal, or anything related to that you wanted to ask?
No, I think that was a good answer. Thank you.
Okay. I had something I wanted to talk. Michael, yes, you have a question.
You go ahead.
I'd love you to ask whatever you want, and I can get back to what I was going to talk about.
One of my questions, you touched on it. Just can you hear me okay then?
Yes.
One of my questions I had, which you just touched on, about the sickness. There's a lot of instruction that talks about the lack of an inherent self and the I, the whole idea that we have of this strong self-identity of whoever we might think we are, and how thinking who we are influences how we see and understand the world. But in there is mostly confusion for us beginners who don't really see through all that. And they talk about the subject and the object and the action and all that being mixed in with confusion. So I wonder if maybe you could somehow talk about how you get more of how we can wrap around the idea that this I that we hold isn't as solid and as real and is more troublesome than we tend to appreciate.
Well, you're certainly going to the heart of the matter here. Yes, as many great Buddhist writers have said in the past, the I, the self, is, to paraphrase, I think, from the Christians, the root of all evil. That's money, right, is the root of all evil. But no, it's the sense of self, is the root of all confusion. And the root of confusion is this erroneous belief and then clinging to this strong sense of me. How do you get through that? How do you cut through that is kind of your question, which is the vast topic of the ocean of Dharma. So it's a rather beginningless and endless discussion and question, but I'm not going to evade it. We'll try to tackle this at least a little bit, because that's what this is about. Dharma is about practical application. of teachings, of understanding, of study, of whatever. So the yogic way, I'm emphasizing that, the yogic way, meaning the way of a meditator, someone who is taking meditation as his or her principal, let's say, tool on their Buddhist journey, is meditation. And what we do is we bring everything to bear on this very topic, which is we have to start with, well, who am I? We have to look deeply, right? So we've been talking in the last several months now about how to settle the mind. The first phase of Buddhist meditation we call shamatha, or in Tibetan shine, which is how to focus the mind, how to settle the mind, how to calm the mind. You can say those three things all together. And it's only by the force of repeated practice, diligence, and commitment that we can make some headway. When we've made some headway and we have some stability, some peace of mind, some focus of our mind, and some ability to get into that focused sort of state, then the real work begins, which is the application of that relaxed, focused, settled mind, which is we start to look, we start to investigate. And what do we investigate? We investigate this unspoken assumption that I exist. We start to look at, well, if I exist, how do I exist? Where do I exist? What is it that exists? And we start the real practice, and this is called Vipassana in the Tibetan system, or the Tibetan word is laktong. So Vipassana is Sanskrit, and laktong means, tong is to see. Lak means more deeply, more profoundly. So how do we see in a deeper way? Not just superficial seeing, but how do we actually look deeply? I say scrutinize. How do we scrutinize this, the meditator, the self, the person that is living this life, has lived for however many decades we've been here in this body, and have all these assumptions, have all these likes, have all these dislikes, have these personality quirks, have this personal history, of our ethnicity and our parents and our upbringing and our, the way we've been conditioned to think or believe in certain things. All of that stuff's wrapped around this idea of a me. And of course, most people never stop and examine, who am I? And as I've said in past weeks, Socrates said, we need to really look at that. We need to question, who am I? That's the fundamental Buddhist question, you could say. Who's home? Is anybody home? Obviously, we have a sense of, I'm home. I'm home in my body. I'm home in my life. Buddhist teachings in this system of Vipassana, of scrutinizing, gives us certain guidelines and tools and ways, approaches to specifically hone in, zero in on, and look at. It has to be done with that sense of shamatha or shine first. So it has to be joined to a focused, settled, calm mind. When we're in that state, after we've settled our mind through meditation, we can begin this process of looking. And I'm saying it's a process, meaning this is going to most likely take many months or many years. And it's okay. There's no hurry here. There's no impatience. It's a journey. This is a journey. It's very important. Meditation should not stay the same throughout our life as a meditator. If we're meditating the same today as we did 20 years ago, or if we meditate 20 years in the future and it's exactly the same as we're doing now, I would say that's something's not quite right there. There needs to be an understanding that there's a trajectory to our practice. There's a path, a sense of journey. And so your question is perfect, because that is what this journey is about, is ultimately dissolving or breaking through or having deep insight into this, what we will discover is an erroneous assumption that we live separately from this external, that there's an external world separate from us, this dualistic split, this dualistic paradigm that we just don't even question. The path of a yogi, the path of a meditator, ultimately, at least initially, is to gain insight, some kind of leverage or foothold into some kind of understanding that that is a flawed way of looking at things or a flawed way of understanding things. But it's only through what we call an aha experience, where there's a genuine flash of genuine insight that is unshakable, that creates absolute confidence in the meditator that I got it. I see something that I've never seen before. I've read about it. I had an intellectual understanding. Now I'm actually experiencing it. Then we return to that. We learn to deepen and become more familiar with that. That's the journey of stabilizing, of deepening, of getting perhaps more subtle insights into that. How do we do it? Honestly, it's done teacher-student, pretty much typically, traditionally one-on-one, where there's specific guidance. The student asks questions. This is what I'm seeing, or this is my understanding, or this is my experience. And then the teacher can, based on his or her perhaps greater experience, can say, yes, or you're on the right track, or here's where you're maybe making a little flaw, or try this, may do this a little differently. And it's a give and take, and through process, we make progress. And it is done this way traditionally. And will continue to be done this way, because this is what works. And this is what we've inherited as this beautiful system of instructions and practice that's yielded these great results through millennia now. So we start by looking at, Michael, I'm going to continue with this. We start by looking at thoughts. Actually, we can say it like this. There's 3 different ways that one applies Laktong or Vipassana. They can all be done. We can focus on one at a time, but they all have great benefits, and they will all inform each other and help us come to the actual experience of the self, the true self. And we often talk about the nature of the self. What is the nature of the self? So what are these 3 things? We can look at external phenomena, objects, everyday objects, and we apply certain traditional logical reasonings to break down our sort of superficial, immediate, knee-jerk feeling that something exists in a solid, real way. Because all of our senses tell us everything is solid and real out there. You know, knock on wood, it's solid. You can't put your hand through it. You can hold it. Or if you hit yourself in the head, it hurts. Those are all indications that things are solid and real. That's pretty obvious. But if we look deeper and look at it in a slightly different way, we can actually gain some, at least intellectual understanding of the truth of this notion that we call emptiness of things, the unfindability of something really being home, really there in the way it appears to us. So that's the first thing, is looking at external objects. And it works, and it's very helpful, and it's a very powerful tool. And certain schools of Buddhism, such as the Gelugpa school, they focus principally on that. A lot of their teachings are focused on that approach to understanding, developing an understanding of emptiness. Okay, that's number 1, external objects. Then we can also look at thoughts. In the same way that we can logically and examine external objects, we can actually, from a meditative basis of stability, clarity, and focus, we can actually kind of almost grab a thought as it emerges from our mind and look at it and learn how, again, usually with the guidance of a teacher, or from some great books and translations that are out there, we can start to understand how to do this, where we scrutinize thoughts, because thoughts are really our main thing that influence our experience of the world. So they sort of jerk us around, I say. Thoughts jerk us around. Our thoughts, a happy thought makes us happy, and a sad thought makes us sad, and a jealous thought makes us jealous. And so we're sort of almost victimized by our thoughts and our thinking process itself. So we need to get a handle on this and look at what the heck is a thought. Thoughts seem very solid. They have this power, apparent power over us. So we need to look at thoughts as well. What are they? Where do they come from? When a thought comes into our mind, where's it coming from? When a thought goes somewhere, leaves our mind, and is replaced by another thought, where did it go? And when it's here, where is here? Does it have a shape? Does it have a texture? Does it have a color? Does it have a sound? What qualities does it have? Through applied meditation, that's, again, focused and settled and present, we can actually penetrate the nature of thoughts. That's the second thing. The third is we look at the self itself. Who am I? Who am I, this person who has received teachings, who is meditating, who is trying to do this work, who is living my life? Who am I? We look directly at this sense of a self. And it's frustrating because it is elusive, it's counterintuitive, it goes against all of our upbringing and all of our our whole life. Every minute of our life is the opposite of what we're talking about here. Buddhism overturns, throws everything into upheaval. Sometimes I say it's not for the faint of heart, because Buddhism will rock your world, and that's the intention of it. So again, I'm scratching the surface here. This is a long, involved discussion with many subtleties and nuances. This is why I try to counsel most students to go slow and at least develop the ability to really have a good, stable shamatha or shine practice, because that is the foundation. And to the extent that that is strong and well developed, that will be the springboard and the foundation for developing true insight. If the mind's not stable and able to stay focused and present, it's not going to have, to use a funny word, it's not going to have the mental strength to really penetrate into the nature of an external object, or the nature of a thought, or the nature of who am I. So that's my long-winded answer to your question.
That was great. Thank you very much.